and welcome to day 2 of RSPCA Australia's annual Animal Welfare Seminar with the theme Animal Ethics and Animal Welfare, Values Informing Outcomes. I'm Dr. Suzie Fowler, Chief Science Officer for RSPCA Australia, and I'm joining you from our offices here in Canberra. I would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. For me in the Canberra region, that is the Ngunnawal and Ngambri and Kamberi people. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending this event today or watching the recordings later. I would also like to acknowledge the connection to, kinship with, and understanding of animals that many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have had for thousands of years and continue to have today. Before we get started, for those who joined yesterday, I'd actually be really interested to see what some of your key takeaways were. What were your favourite messages from yesterday's speakers? Please feel free to add your thoughts in the chat. And whilst we wait for some of those replies, and for those of you who weren't here yesterday, there's a few things I'd like to tell you about the platform so that you get the most out of your seminar experience. You'll see that we are using the Demio as the platform for the seminar. I'm coming to you from the stage section, and you'll see that there is a stage on the left of your screen in the blue area and a chat to the right. While I'm speaking to you live, the presentations that we have for you today are actually pre-recorded. We've done this to minimise the risk of any technical issues, and fingers crossed that goes to plan. After each presentation, the presenter will then be joining us for a live Q&A session. We'll be putting all the recordings up on the Seminar Resource Hub on our website as soon as possible after the seminar concludes, including our Q&A sessions. A link to the Resource Hub will be posted in the chat. You can post questions for speakers in the chat section on the right-hand side of the screen, and you can do that at any time during their presentation and during the Q&A. We have RSPCA staff on board who will be monitoring the chat and select questions for the speaker. We do apologise in advance if we're not able to ask all of the questions due to time constraints, and we've had some amazing interest in this seminar so far, so we'll do our best to get through as many of the questions as possible and collate similar questions if we can. It would also really be great to hear from you through any audience polls that we pop up every now and then throughout the seminar. Please remember to be respectful of the speakers and your fellow participants when using the chat. We encourage active participation and debate, but we will remove any offensive or defamatory comments. And please be aware that the views expressed by either our speakers or by attendees in the chat do not necessarily reflect those of the RSPCA. If you're having any technical difficulties, please let us know via the chat function and we'll try and help you out as best as possible. And at the end of the day, please feel free to provide feedback on the seminar using the survey form that will appear after the session ends. Your feedback is really appreciated and it goes into helping us inform future seminars and making better arrangements in the future. So I'm going to do a quick recap of yesterday's topics before we get kick-started for today. So on day 1 of the seminar, we focused a little bit on understanding animal ethics, including a brief history of how people think about animal ethics, including an Aboriginal perspective on animals, and the effect of ethics on the legal recognition of animal sentience, and how much do people really care about animal ethics and welfare. It sparked a huge amount of conversation in the chat, and I think everyone who attended yesterday would agree that it was a really interesting session for all of us. First of all, yesterday we had David Fraser, who gave us a wonderful overview of the history of animal ethics, from cultural beliefs and how they have shaped our thinking of animal ethics. And he also outlined a practical framework for thinking and using animal ethics into the future. We also had a brilliant presentation from Tim Dean from the Ethics Centre, who discussed ways that we can bridge the gap between people who have different views about animals, highlighting that we need to find ways to connect with people on an emotional level rather than just using our rational arguments. We also had Bindi Bennett and Claire Archer-Lean, who explained that Western views about animal ethics do not always fit with Aboriginal beliefs and practices when it comes to dogs in remote communities. And they emphasised the need for Aboriginal involvement in any animal programs that impact Aboriginal people in order to achieve the best outcomes. Jane Kotzman talked about how changing ethical values in society can impact the development of legislation and highlighted both the importance and limitations of recognising sentience in animal law. And we wrapped up with Peter Sandhu, who presented on different animal ethics orientations in society, their influence on consumer behaviour, and the gap that we often see between individuals' beliefs and their actions. And we had some really interesting poll results where most of the audience actually agreed that often their actions do not match with their beliefs. So at the end of day one, we also had a panel discussion which covered questions from a number of the audience members on where to next with animal ethics and how we can use ethics to help progress animal welfare. And I know yesterday was jam-packed, and I really look forward to the talks and discussions that we have planned for you today, and really looking forward to more engagement from our audience. So please keep those questions rolling in the chat. Today, the second afternoon of the seminar, we're going to shift our focus to applied animal ethics, where we consider animal welfare issues across different sectors through an ethical lens. I'd like to remind you that some of our presentations may contain content that some attendees may find distressing or emotionally challenging, and in particular for our first presentation today. It is certainly difficult to discuss animal ethics and welfare without touching on some of this tough material. If you feel that you may be negatively affected, please make sure that you look after yourself and consider what you need to do to look after your personal well-being.